Reddit, tell me your glitch in the Matrix stories. Every so often, I'll have dreams which play out exactly as I've dreamt them. Years later, they're usually insignificant moments, so I make a mental note and move on. Not sure if this relates, but about 2 years into my relationship with my GF, we'll call her Susan, I had a dream about my ex. Dream went like this. I was in my room, at my mother's house, where I lived at the time, slamming my ex. Balls to the wall, psyching it up. I knew I was cheating on Susan, but didn't care. So in the middle of it, I look over to the window, which you can see the back porch from, and Susan is there, watching us, crying and mortified. I then woke up. I thought it was a weird dream, but dismissed it. A few days go by and Susan and I are hanging out in my room. She brings up this weird dream she had a few days prior, and describes my exact dream except from her POV looking through the window. Freaked me the duck out. Didn't say anything about it at the time. I still haven't said anything. 5 or 6 years later, it still weirds me out. Sort of related perhaps? When I was looking at colleges, I was walking down a stairwell to see a building when I passed a girl about my age. We both met gazes. Passed and then at the same time stopped, turned back around and looked again. For a moment we just stared at each other. It was like I had just run into someone I had known my whole life but had never seen before. At the same time we asked, "Do I know you?" Confused. We spent a few moments trying to figure it out. We swapped names, shared where we were from, where we had traveled, but there was no match up at all. Nothing. She apparently felt the same way, like she'd known me all her life. We didn't know anything about one another, but there was this unexplainable, undeniable connection. Her parents, who hadn't realized she had stopped and had continued walking, came back and hurried her off before I could get her phone or email. Julia, if you're out there, message me. Edit, before you suggest it. I'm pretty sure we weren't twins. She was black and I am white. I used to have a lot of weird run-ins with seeing strange men in suits at random times, places a few years back. I always thought this was Matrix related, agents. But then I discovered Slender Man. Alright, pretty sure this'll get buried, but I've always wanted to share this story. So my family and I moved when I was in 3rd grade. Before we moved, my parents brought me and my siblings on a road trip to introduce us to our future house. It was owned by this nice old man who did a lot of self-repair over the years. We still find little oddities every now and then undoubtedly left by him. I walked inside, waved at a kind-looking old lady in a rocking chair, walked around, and then we left. Nothing odd, except for one small detail. As we left the house, I was a little confused. "But Mom," I asked, "I thought you said owner of house lived by himself. Who was the old lady?" My mom gave me a three-headed look. "What old lady?" My family agreed with her. There wasn't an old lady sitting in the living room, and the owner's wife had died recently. Yeah, I have a couple other weird stories about that house if anyone's interested. Edit, wow. Woke up in the morning to a huge response. I posted another story in a reply to this one. It's weird. Ever since I was a kid, I have what I call doubling occasionally happen around me. I put something in a pocket, then later find it in another pocket, as well as the original in the pocket I had put it in. And yes, it has happened to money before. Score. The most standout example was when I was a teen at camp. All the leaders had engraved plastic name tags, and we were only issued one. I used to keep moving mine between my hat and my shirt. At the end of camp I just crammed all my stuff in a duffel and headed home. Later when I unpack, the first thing I do is pull out my hat with the tag on it. Okay, so that's where I had it last. And of course a minute later I pull out a shirt with the same name tag pinned to it. I also experienced a similar phenomenon when I was a kid. For a few years it happened on a daily basis, but haven't seen it in a long time. Someone would place something in their pocket, backpack, etc. But when they went to grab it later it would be missing. I would then reach into my pocket, backpack, whatever, and pull the item out. I initially got accused of being a thief, but when it happened repeatedly when I hadn't even been within 20 feet of the victim, my friends and classmates stopped doing so and just kind of accepted that that would happen around me. TL. DR, I'm a quantum counterfeiter pickpocket. One of my friends has a family photo on her wall of her family in Florida back in 1998, and about 4 years ago we were all round at her place for a party and one of the girls burst out crying. When she finally calmed down, she said that in the background of the photo a family is walking past and it's her mum, dad and brother, and she's more or less looking into the camera. We all laugh about it now, but it's so weird to look at. Oh man, I have one of these that involves the Matrix. I got my wisdom teeth out in 2000, right around the time that the original Matrix came out on VHS. I was bombed completely out of my mind on Percocet after coming back from the surgery. I had awful wisdom teeth, and my mom basically just dropped me in bed and went and rented the movie for me because I'd never seen it in theaters. I remember being irritated that the sun through the window was making the TV glare, but being too out of it to get up. A little bit after the black cat glitch in the Matrix scene, I passed out and apparently slept for about 8 hours. The tape in the VHS machine kept rewinding itself and playing over and over again. I woke up and the movie was at roughly the same spot as when I passed out, but it was completely dark outside. Zero time lapse for me. Completely lost my mind. Started freaking out and screaming because I thought I'd discovered the secret and somebody turned off the sun. I remember crying and trying to explain to my panicked family, who had never let me live it down. Picture of my friends when they were younger. We've been trying to figure out whose hand is making the thumbs up behind the kid on the right. My dad had this little toy monkey that he used to call his favorite child and tease me and my siblings with it. Not in a bad way, but it was really frustrating to us and we spent hours trying to steal it from him. Well, anyways, one day we finally got it and threw it into the garbage after drawing on it and mangling it for a bit. My dad laughed and searched for it a bit, but basically figured we had thrown it out and gave up after a week or so. Anyways, a few years later, when I was about 17, I'm walking down the street in Toronto. I don't live in was just visiting friends, and see this little orange object on the side of the road. When I walk over to it, I pick it up and see that it was the exact same duck-eyeing monkey. It even had the black Sharpie lines on it from when we drew all over it. I honestly cannot even come up with the chances of that happening, especially considering our garbage is sent to a local dump and is nowhere near Toronto. I actually took it with me and killed it with fire just so I knew it wouldn't come back again. Can we please make this into a subreddit? I was eating popcorn in front of the TV and dropped a piece when it should have hit the ground. I heard a faint pop noise. My mom was a stickler about messes, so I looked all over. Under the couch, under the TV stand, everywhere, and couldn't find that popcorn. About a year later, I'm watching TV again, and I hear the same faint pop. I look down, and right between my feet is a freshly popped kernel of popcorn. I picked it up, and it was still warm. I'd been sitting there for at least an hour, and there was nobody else in the room. Quantum popcorn. When my drama class went to Disneyland, they took a big group picture in front of the castle. They took 3 pictures to make sure they got one good one. The first and last photo are normal, but the second has a guy no one's seen before in between 2 people with his arms around their shoulders. No one noticed him when the picture was taken. I had a monkey on my keychain back in high school. This chain was 3 links long. One day I was walking out to my car and I heard something hit the ground. I looked down to discover the monkey with links 1 and 2 of the chain still attached on the ground and link 3 still attached to my belt. All of the links were still fused together. My only guess is the chain phased itself apart. Driving home on a storm day, I see that a side road up to the local golf course is blocked off by flashing barricades. I also spy a Mercedes parked past the barricades with its hazards on. I stop and walk up to the car to see if they need help. I'm an EMT. I shine my light in the back seat to see a man slumped over, apparently asleep. Thinking I've got a few drunks, I move up to the driver window and rap on the glass and shine my light in. The driver is sitting bolt upright, unmoving, staring straight ahead. My window rapping or light doesn't cause him to blink, flinch or move. I look over and the passenger is slumped forward onto the dash. This begins to creep me out. I call down to the sheriff station and request a code 2. No lights, sirens. Unit up to my location to help me check them out. Doors are locked. While on the phone I walk back to my truck to get my go bag. As I'm on the phone with dispatch, she asks me to get a license number for the car just as a Pagant power company cherry picker truck comes rumbling down from up the closed road. I move to go around the truck to get the plate number, and the car is gone. I talked to the driver of the truck and he said there was a 80-foot tree down across the road, and that he didn't think it'd be open for a day or so. So the question is, the hell did the car go? Tree up one way, barricades down the other. It's kept me a bit unsettled when stopping at accidents hazards since then. Edit. Here is the intersection via Google Maps. Barricades were 5 feet in front of the camera and the tree was up around the distant bend.